Today we're going to start talking about circles. We're going to start with the circumference of a circle. Before we can define the circumference of a circle, we have to start with defining the parts of the circle itself. This here is the midpoint or the center of the circle. If I were to extend a line, and a straight line all the way across the circle in any direction, it would be the same length, assuming that I actually drew it as a perfect circle and not really squished here. The diameter of the circle is the distance all the way across the circle center in a straight line. So from here to here in a perfectly straight line is the diameter. A diameter would not be something like this, where it doesn't cross to the middle of the circle. It would not be in a wavy line. That's not a diameter. There are multiple diameters in a circle. The diameter could be this way, it could be this way in a straight line, it could be this way in a straight line, as long as it crosses through the middle of the circle. We're going to talk about circumference and area of circles, but for today we're going to start with circumference. The circumference of a circle is the distance all the way around the outside of the circle. If I were to lay a string around the outside of this circle, I would be finding the length of that string. There's a number now you're going to have to memorize. We're going to use the concept of pi. Pi is actually the ratio of a circle's circumference to the diameter. So if I were to put the length around the outside of this circle over this length here, if I divided the top number by the bottom number, it would become pi. But we don't need to worry about that right now. The only thing you need to know is that pi is 3.14, and it keeps going, but for the purposes of this lesson, we're just going to use the number 3.14 in any situation. Now here's the formula we're going to use to find the circumference of a circle. The circumference of a circle is always given as circumference equals the diameter of the circle times pi, or circumference is equal to d pi. So for this circle, if I wanted to find the distance around the outside of it, I could simply fill in what I know. I see here the diameter is 8 meters, so I go ahead and I plug in 8 for d, and I see that c is equal to 8 times pi. Now we know that pi, what we're going to be using, is 3.14. So if I get out my handy dandy calculator, well, c is equal to 8 times 3.14. So I'll get c is equal to 25.12, using my units here, meters. And we don't put squared or cubed or anything, it's just meters, because I'm just measuring a distance around the outside of a circle. Do you remember how I talked about a circle having a midpoint and having the exact same distance from the midpoint to all the outside of the circle? That distance is known as the radius, and the radius is, as you can see, half of the diameter. The diameter, or the distance all the way across, was 8 meters. In this particular circle, the radius is 4 meters. So what if I asked you to find the circumference of this circle, but I gave you the radius? Well, you would simply multiply that radius by 2 to find the diameter. So in this case, I could write a new formula. Instead of saying circumference is equal to diameter times pi, I could also say, and I want you to write this formula down as well, the circumference is equal to 2 times the radius, meaning that we now have the distance all the way across the circle, just like we did before, times pi. So you're taking this radius and doubling it to find the diameter before you multiply by pi. These two things are the same formula. It just depends on whether or not you're given the radius, so this short distance from the middle to the outside, or the diameter, the distance all the way across. Let's test this out. If I know that the circumference is 2 times the radius times pi, I'll plug in 2 times the radius, which is 4, times pi, which I know is 3.14. And again, if I multiply these two numbers, I'll get 8 times pi, just like I did before. If I multiply 8 times 3.14, I'll get 25.12 meters, just like I did with using the diameter. Let's do one more example. Here's a circle that has a diameter of 7 miles. I can tell that it's a diameter because I'm given the distance all the way across. I want to find the circumference. The first thing I'm going to do is write my formula, circumference is equal to diameter times pi. And then all I have to do is plug in the numbers I'm given. The circumference is equal to 7 times 3.14, and as my answer, I get circumference is equal to 21.98, and this time my units are miles.